My name's Emily, and for the last 15 years, I've been married to James. We live in a nice little split-level house just outside Chicago. The kind with a big backyard and a 2-car garage. It's the sort of place you'd see in a suburban dream, green lawns, kids riding bikes, neighbors waving over the fence. I used to think I had it all figured out, a solid marriage, 2 great kids who are now teenagers, and a husband who's climbed the ladder in the finance world. But somewhere along the way, I started to feel like I was disappearing. Not in some dramatic, movie star way, but slow and quiet, like a photo fading in the sun. The person who was supposed to love me most in the world, James, stopped seeing me. And let me tell you, nothing cuts deeper than realizing you're invisible to the one guy who promised to have your back forever. It didn't happen overnight. I mean, 15 years is a long haul, plenty of time for things to shift without you even noticing. At first, it was the little stuff. James used to come home from work, toss his briefcase on the counter, and pull me into a hug, even if I was elbow deep in dishes or yelling at the kids to finish their homework. We'd sit on the couch after dinner, split a beer, and talk about dumb things, like whether the Bears had a shot at the playoffs or if we should repaint the living room. Back then, he'd look at me, really look at me, like I was the only thing that mattered. But over the years, that faded. The hugs turned into a quick, "Hey," as he bolted upstairs to check emails. The couch talks? Replaced by him scrolling his phone or crashing early because work's been brutal. I get it. Life gets busy. He's got a big job, managing portfolios or whatever it is he does downtown. But I didn't sign up to feel like a piece of furniture in my own house. I tried to keep things going. You know, I'd cook his favorite meals, meatloaf with that crispy edge he likes, or chili loaded with extra jalapenos. I'd throw on a cute top instead of my usual yoga pants, hoping he'd notice. Sometimes I'd even start a conversation about something random, like that new brewery opening up in Wicker Park, just to see if he'd bite. Most times, he'd just nod, mumble something about being wiped, and that'd be it. No spark, no nothing. I started wondering if it was me. Was I boring now? Had I let myself go? I mean, I'm 42, not 22 anymore, but I still hit the gym a couple times a week. Still fit into my old jeans. It wasn't like I'd turned into someone he couldn't recognize. So why did it feel like I was shouting into a void? The kids didn't help much either. Sophie's 16 now, always locked in her room with her phone. And Liam's 14, obsessed with video games. They've got their own lives, which I guess is normal. But it left me rattling around the house with no one to talk to. James and I used to be a team, tag-teaming diaper changes, school projects, soccer games. Now it's like we're roommates who happen to share a mortgage. I'd catch myself staring at him sometimes, across the kitchen table while he shoveled cereal into his mouth before work, wondering when he stopped caring. Did he even notice I was still here? I'd ask him about his day, and he'd give me these one-word answers: fine, busy, good, like I was some coworker he didn't want to chat up at the water cooler. It stung bad. I guess I could have said something. Could have sat him down and been like, "Hey, what the hell's going on with us?" But every time I thought about it, I chickened out. What if he turned it around on me? Told me I was overreacting or that I needed to chill? Or worse, what if he didn't care enough to even argue? So I kept it inside. Let it simmer. I'd tell myself it was just a phase. Marriages have ups and downs, right? That's what all the self-help books say. And God knows I've skimmed a few at the library, hoping for some magic fix. But deep down, I knew this wasn't a dip. This was me fading away, one unnoticed day at a time. It's funny how you don't see the breaking point coming until it's right in your face. For me, it wasn't some big fight or a caught cheating moment like you'd see on TV. It was quieter than that. But just as heavy. I started feeling this ache, like I was losing myself. Not just him. I'd walk Matabi, I'd look in the mirror some mornings and think, who even are you anymore? Emily? I wasn't the girl James fell for back in college. The one who'd drag him to dive bars and dance to Springsteen covers until 2 a.m. I was a mom. A wife. A scheduler of orthodontist appointments and grocery runs. And yeah, I was proud of that life. We'd built something solid. But where did I go? I'd catch myself daydreaming about dumb stuff. Like hopping a plane to somewhere warm. Sipping a piña colada on a beach. Just to feel alive again. But then I'd snap out of it. That wasn't me. I didn't run off. I stayed. Still, that ache kept growing. I'd lie awake at night. James snoring next to me. And wonder if this was it. 15 years down. Another 30 to go. Just coasting through. I didn't want to be the naggy wife. Always bitching about attention. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I deserved more. Not diamonds or fancy vacations, though. Sure, that'd be nice, but just to be seen. To have him look at me and actually give a damn. I started thinking maybe I was asking too much. Maybe this is just what happens when you've been together forever. The fire dies, and you're left with the ashes. Trying to pretend it's still warm. Looking back, I can see how it all piled up, every missed moment. Every half-assed, love you, tossed over his shoulder as he bolted out the door. It wasn't hate or anger that got me. It was the nothing, the empty space where we used to be. And I didn't know it yet, but that nothing was about to push me right over the edge. So there I was, Emily, 42 years old, standing in my kitchen on what was supposed to be our big 15th anniversary. April 12th, a cool spring evening in our little slice of suburban Chicago. I'd spent all day psyching myself up for it, telling myself maybe this time James would remember. Maybe he'd walk through that door with a goofy grin. A cheap bouquet from the gas station. Something. Anything. To show he still gave a damn. I mean, 15 years isn't nothing. It's half a lifetime of late-night talks, diaper changes, and arguing over who forgot to pay the electric bill. So yeah, I let myself hope, even though deep down I knew better. I went all out, like some desperate contestant on a cooking show. I made his favorite, slow-roasted beef with that crispy crust he used to rave about. Mashed potatoes whipped with extra butter. And a green bean casserole I'd pulled from my mom's old recipe card. The table was set with the good plates. The ones we only drag out for Thanksgiving. And I even lit a couple of those scented candles Sophie got me for Christmas. Vanilla something or other. I threw on my favorite dress. This navy blue number that still hugged me in the right places. And did my hair up nice. It wasn't about looking 25 again, it was about feeling like I mattered. I kept glancing at the clock, figuring he'd be home by 6:30 like usual. And we'd have this perfect little night. Just the two of us. Since the kids were off at sleepovers, Sophie at her friend Mia's. Liam at his buddy Jake's. I even poured myself a glass of Pinot Noir to take the edge off while I waited. 6:30 came and went. Then 7 o'clock. By 7:30, I was pacing the kitchen, picking at the mashed potatoes to keep from losing it. I texted him, "Hey, you on your way?" But no reply. Typical James lately, always glued to his phone for work but never for me. Finally, at 8:15, I heard the garage door rumble open. My heart did this stupid little flip. Like maybe he'd surprise me after all. I smoothed my dress, took a deep breath, and waited by the counter. He walked in, tie loose, jacket slung over his arm, looking like he'd just wrestled a bear in a boardroom. "Hey," he mumbled, dropping his briefcase on the floor. No flowers, no card, not even a glance at the table. He just shuffled past me, sniffing the air like a dog. "Smells good." Work was a nightmare. Big meeting ran late. I'm beat. And with that, he trudged upstairs, leaving me standing there like an idiot. I don't know how long I stayed frozen, but it felt like forever. The candles were dripping wax onto the tablecloth. The beef was getting cold, and that glass of wine in my hand was shaking because I was gripping it so hard. He didn't even say, "Happy anniversary." Not a word. 15 years. And it was just another Thursday to him. I set the glass down before I smashed it and walked over to the stairs, listening to the sound of him kicking off his shoes up there, probably already scrolling ESPN on his phone. I wanted to scream, "Do you even know what day it is?" But my voice wouldn't come. It was stuck somewhere between my chest and my throat, tangled up with all the hurt I'd been swallowing for months, hell, years. That's when it hit me. Like a freight train right to the gut. I wasn't just invisible to him, I was nothing. A cook, a maid, a warm body to fill the other side of the bed. I looked around at that perfect little setup, the food, the candles, the dress, and it all felt so pathetic. I'd poured my heart into this night, and he couldn't even muster a, "Sorry I'm late." I think that's what broke me. Not the forgetting, but the not caring. I'd been fading for so long. And this was the moment I couldn't pretend anymore. My marriage wasn't just in a rut, it was a ghost town. And I was the only one still wandering around, pretending it was alive. I don't know what came over me next. Maybe it was the wine. Or maybe it was all those nights I'd lain awake wondering if this was my life now. But I couldn't stay in that house another second. It was suffocating, the silence, the weight of being unseen. I grabbed my coat from the hook by the door, snatched my keys off the counter, and bolted for the garage. James didn't even call after me. I doubt he noticed. I slid into our old Ford Explorer, the one with the dent from when Liam backed it into the mailbox last year, and peeled out of the driveway. No plan, no destination, just this wild, buzzing need to get the hell out. I drove aimlessly for a bit, past the strip malls and the cul-de-sacs, until I ended up downtown, near the river. That's when I saw it, the Rusty Anchor. This little hole-in-the-wall bar I'd passed a million times but never stepped into. It looked cozy, with its chipped red sign and warm light spilling out the windows. I parked crooked across two spaces, didn't care, and marched inside like I owned the place. The air smelled like stale beer and fried onions, and some old Tom Petty song was crackling through the jukebox. I slid onto a stool at the bar, ordered a martini, dirty, because why not, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The bartender, a guy with a gray beard and a Cubs cap, slid it over without a word. I took a sip, felt the burn, and thought, "Okay, Emily, now what?" I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that I couldn't go back to that kitchen, that table, that life, not yet. I wasn't running away for good, not throwing in the towel on everything. But I needed something, anything, to shake me out of this fog. And as I sat there, staring into that glass, I had no idea that night was about to flip my whole world upside down. So there I parked on a bar stool at the Rusty Anchor, nursing a dirty martini like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. It was pushing 9 p.m., and the place was half empty. Just a handful of regulars hunched over beers and a couple of guys arguing about the Cubs' latest choke job in the corner. The jukebox was cycling through some old school tunes, Springsteen now, Dancing in the Dark, which felt a little too on the nose for my mood. I'd stormed out of the house after James blew off our 15th anniversary, leaving behind a cold roast and a table full of melted candles. I didn't know what I was looking for at that bar, but sitting there, staring at the olive bobbing in my glass, I knew I couldn't face going home yet. Not to that silence, not to him. I was 2 sips in when the door creaked open, and this guy walked in. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair that looked like he'd run his hands through it one too many times. He had on a leather jacket and jeans. The kind of effortless cool you don't see much in the suburbs. He scanned the room, then headed straight for the bar, sliding onto the stool next to mine. I didn't look up at first. Figured he was just another dude grabbing a drink, but then he spoke. Rough night? His voice was low, warm, like a shot of bourbon on a cold day. I glanced over, and damn, those eyes, piercing blue, the kind that could pin you to a wall without even trying. I smirked, trying to play it off. You could say that, I said, swirling my drink. What about you? He grinned, just a little, and shrugged. Long day. Needed a beer and some quiet. He stuck out a hand. I'm Noah. I hesitated for a split second. Didn't really feel like small talk, but something about him made me bite. Emily, I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and for some reason, that tiny bit of contact sent a jolt through me. The bartender slid him a Miller Lite, and Noah tipped it toward me like a toast. To surviving rough nights, he said. I clinked my glass against his bottle. I'll drink to that. We started talking, and I don't even know how it happened. 1 minute it was just bar banter, him asking if I was a Cubs or Sox fan. Cubs. Obviously, me ribbing him about his leather jacket like he was auditioning for a Springsteen cover band. But then it got real. Fast. I don't know if it was the martini loosening me up or the fact that he actually listened. But I started spilling my guts. Not the whole sob story. Just bits and pieces. How I'd cooked this big dinner for my anniversary. How my husband didn't even notice. How I ended up here instead of home. Noah didn't interrupt. Didn't pull that guy move where they try to fix everything. He just nodded, took a sip of his beer, and said, sounds like he's missing out on a hell of a woman. I laughed. First real laugh I'd had in weeks. Yeah, well, he's got a funny way of showing it. Noah leaned in a little, his elbow resting on the bar, and those blue eyes locked on mine. Some guys don't know what they've got till it's gone. It wasn't cheesy, the way he said it. It was quiet, steady, like he meant every word. My stomach did this weird flip, and I took a bigger sip of my drink to cover it. I wasn't used to this, some stranger looking at me like I was worth something. James hadn't looked at me like that in years. Not since the kids were little and we were still a team. The conversation kept rolling, easy and natural. He told me he was in town for work, something vague about consulting. Moving around a lot. I told him about life in the burbs. How it's all soccer games and Costco runs until you blink and realize you're invisible. Hours slipped by. 2. Maybe 3. And I didn't even notice the bar emptying out. The jukebox switched to Tom Petty. Free Fallin', and Noah grinned. Good song, he said. Yeah, I agreed. Makes you wanna just let go. He tilted his head, studying me. So why don't you? I didn't have an answer. Not a good one. I just shrugged and said, easier said than done. Then it happened. He reached out, real slow, and brushed a strand of hair off my cheek. His fingers lingered there, just for a second, and I swear my heart stopped. You deserve to be noticed. Emily, he said, soft but firm, to be appreciated. It was like he'd reached inside me and pulled out every ache I'd been carrying. Every night I'd felt like a ghost in my own house. I should have pulled back, made some dumb joke to break the tension. But I didn't. I couldn't. The air between us got thick, heavy with something I hadn't felt in forever. Before I could overthink it, I leaned in, and our lips met. It wasn't just a kiss. It was fire, hot, messy, desperate, like all the years of being ignored had built up and exploded right there in that dingy bar. His hand slid to the back of my neck, pulling me closer, and I let myself drown in it. The taste of beer on his breath, the scratch of stubble against my skin. It was raw, alive, everything my life hadn't been. We broke apart, breathing hard, And he looked at me like I was the only person in the damn world. "Wanna get out of here?" he asked. Voice rough. I didn't think. I just nodded. Next thing I knew, we were stumbling out into the cool night air. My coat half on, his arm around my waist. We didn't say much, just climbed into his truck. Some beat-up Chevy parked down the street. And drove. I didn't ask where we were going. And he didn't tell me. All I knew was that for the first time in years, I felt seen. And right then, that was enough. By the time Noah and I left the rusty anchor, it was close to midnight. The Chicago air hit me like a slap, crisp and sharp, cutting through the haze of that martini and whatever the hell had just happened back at the bar. We'd kissed, right there in front of God and the jukebox. And now I was climbing into his beat-up Chevy truck, the kind with a scratched-up bed and a faint smell of motor oil. My coat was still half on. My heart was hammering, and I didn't know where we were going. All I knew was I didn't want to stop. Not yet. For once, I wasn't thinking about James, the cold roast on my kitchen counter, or the life I'd left behind an hour ago. I was just moving. Noah didn't say much as he drove, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gearshift. The city lights streaked by, neon signs, street lamps, the glow of the river reflecting off the skyline. Tom Petty was still stuck in my head, that free-fallen riff looping like a soundtrack to whatever this was. I stole a glance at him, his jaw tight, those blue eyes fixed on the road, and felt this weird mix of nerves and adrenaline. "Where we headed?" I finally asked, my voice sounding louder than I meant it to in the quiet cab. He shot me a half smile, the kind that made my stomach flip. "Somewhere we can breathe," he said, cryptic. Sure, but I didn't push. I was too caught up in the rush of it all. We ended up at this little motel off the highway, maybe 10 minutes from downtown. The sign out front flickered, "River Rest Inn," in faded red letters. And the parking lot had more potholes than pavement. It wasn't fancy. No Marriott or anything. Just a row of squat rooms with peeling paint and a vending machine humming by the office. Noah parked, turned off the engine, and looked at me. "You good with this?" he asked, his voice low but steady. I could have said no, could have asked him to take me back to my car, back to my life, but I didn't. "Yeah," I said, nodding. "I'm good. We got a room, number 12. Second floor, up a rusty metal staircase." The clerk didn't even blink, just handed Noah a key and went back to his phone. Inside, it was what you'd expect. A lumpy double bed with a floral comforter. A TV bolted to the wall. A faint whiff of cigarette smoke clinging to everything. But I didn't care. The second the door clicked shut, Noah pulled me to him. And we were kissing again, harder this time. Like we'd been holding back at the bar. His hands were on my waist. Then my back, peeling off my coat like it was in the way. I yanked at his jacket, fumbling with the zipper, and we stumbled toward the bed, all clumsy and desperate. That night was, God, it was everything. It wasn't just sex, though. Yeah, that happened, and it was good, real good. It was more than that. It was like I'd been starving for years. And Noah was the first person to hand me a damn plate. He didn't rush, didn't treat me like some chore to check off. He looked at me. Really looked. His hands tracing every inch like I was something worth seeing. I hadn't felt that in so long. I almost didn't know what to do with it. Every touch, every whisper, "You're beautiful. Emily, you deserve this," it cracked me open. For those few hours, I wasn't James's wife, or Sophie and Liam's mom, or the lady who schedules the carpool. I was me, alive, messy, wanted me. Afterward, we lay there, tangled in the sheets, the hum of the motel's AC filling the silence. My head was on his chest, his heartbeat thumping steady under my ear. I should have felt guilty, I knew that. I was married, for Christ's sake, but all I felt was this wild, shaky freedom, like I'd busted out of a cage I didn't even know I was in. Noah ran his fingers through my hair, and I closed my eyes, letting myself just be for once. We didn't talk much, didn't need to. The weight of the night said enough. I must have dozed off, because when I opened my eyes, the room was gray with early morning light sneaking through the blinds. Noah was gone. The bed was empty beside me, his jacket missing from the chair. For a second, I panicked. Had he just ditched me? But then I saw it. A scrap of motel stationery on the pillow. Scrawled in messy handwriting. "Thanks for a night I won't forget." I stared at it, a stupid grin creeping onto my face. No number, no promises, just that, and somehow, it felt right. I didn't need more, not then. I got up, pulled on my clothes, and sat on the edge of the bed for a minute, letting it all sink in. My dress was wrinkled, my hair a mess, but I felt lighter, like I'd shed something heavy I'd been dragging around. But as I grabbed my coat and headed for the door, reality started creeping back. James, the house, the life I'd bolted from. I drove home in a daze, the sunrise painting the sky pink over the Chicago sprawl. When I pulled into the garage, it was barely 6 a.m. The kitchen was just like I'd left it, cold beef, wilted candles, that untouched table. James was upstairs, probably still snoring, oblivious as ever. I stood there, staring at the mess, and waited for the guilt to hit. It came, sure, a sharp little jab in my gut, but it wasn't as loud as I expected. Because mixed in with it was something else. Exhilaration. I'd stepped out of my life for one night, and it had shaken me awake. I didn't know what came next, how I'd face James, or if I'd ever see Noah again. All I knew was I couldn't unfeel this, and that scared the hell out of me. I was still riding this weird high from that night at the motel. Noah's note tucked in my coat pocket like a secret I couldn't shake. It was Saturday morning when I got home, hair a mess, dress wrinkled, the kitchen still a graveyard of cold roast and burned out candles. James was upstairs, probably dead to the world, and the kids were off at their sleepovers. I stood there, waiting for the shame to hit me hard. It came, a little, this nagging, what the hell did I do? But it wasn't enough to drown out the buzz. I'd felt alive, seen, wanted, and that lingered louder than the guilt of cheating on my husband with some guy I'd met in a bar. I cleaned up quick, dumped the food, tossed the candles, erased the evidence like I was covering up a crime. James came down around 8 o'clock, shuffling in his boxers and that ratty Bears t-shirt, slurping coffee from his dumb, world's okayest dad, mug. "Morning," he grunted, flipping open the Wall Street Journal without a glance my way. "No, where were you?" "No, what's with the table?" "Just nothing, like always." I mumbled a morning back, started frying eggs, and kept my hands steady even though my head was a tornado. Noah's voice. His hands. That damn note. I kept waiting for James to catch something off. But he didn't. He never did. Things slid back to normal. Or whatever you'd call it. For a couple days, I drove Liam to soccer, helped Sophie with algebra, faked my way through the routine. Inside, though, I was a wreck, half guilty, half wired. I kept replaying that night at the River Rest Inn, wondering if Noah was thinking about me or if I'd just been a blip to him. No number, no way to know, and maybe that was better. Then Wednesday rolled around, and the floor dropped out from under me. James was home early, sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in with grocery bags. "Hey," he said, looking up from his laptop. "Got some news. Firm's bringing in a new partner. Guy named Noah Carter. Smart as hell. Good with numbers. We're meeting him tomorrow. Thought I'd have him over for dinner. Let you two meet." I think you'll like him. My heart stopped cold. I dropped the bag. Cans of Campbell's soup rolling across the tile, and just stared. Noah Carter? I croaked, my voice sounding like it was coming from someone else. James didn't flinch, just nodded. Yeah, he's been consulting with us on and off. Finally locked him down. Why, you know him? I shook my head too fast. No, just, sounds familiar, I guess. He shrugged and went back to his screen. I bent down to grab the cans. Hands trembling, my brain screaming. Noah. My Noah? No way. I didn't sleep that night, tossing while James snored beside me. Was it a coincidence? Some other Noah Carter? Chicago's huge, had to be. Right? But those blue eyes, that voice, the way he'd said my name, it gnawed at me. By Thursday, I was a mess. James wanted a nice dinner, grilled chicken, roasted potatoes, nothing fancy but impressive enough. He said, I cooked on autopilot, mind racing. When the doorbell rang at 6:30, I nearly dropped the spatula. James yelled, "Can you get that?" from the living room. And I wiped my hands on my apron, legs wobbly as I shuffled to the door. I opened it, and there he was, Noah, leather jacket traded for a crisp button-down. But those eyes, God, those eyes, slammed into me like a freight train. He smiled, slow and easy. "Hey, Emily," he said, like we were old pals. "Good to see you again." My mouth went dry. James came up behind me, clueless, clapping Noah on the shoulder. "You two know each other?" he asked. Grinning, Noah didn't blink. "Met briefly once," he said, his gaze locked on mine. Something sharp glinting behind that smile. "Small world, huh?" I forced a laugh, nodding like a dummy, while my stomach twisted into a pretzel. Dinner was hell. James blabbed about work, some merger, some deal, while Noah nodded along. Smooth and charming. I pushed potatoes around my plate, barely eating, every word out of Noah's mouth rattling me. He'd glance my way, quick and sly, like he was daring me to crack. After dessert, store-bought apple continued on next page pie. Because I couldn't focus enough to bake, James got a call and stepped out to take it. Noah leaned back in his chair, eyeing me across the table. "Can we talk?" he said. Low but firm. I nodded, heart slamming against my ribs, and led him to the living room while James paced the porch outside. The second we were alone, I turned on him. "What the hell's going on?" I hissed, keeping it quiet. "You work with James?" He stepped closer, too close, and I caught that same leather and beer scent from the bar. "I knew who you were that night, Emily," he said, voice dropping. "Knew you were his wife." My stomach sank like a stone. "What?" I choked out. He didn't flinch. "James screwed me over 3 years ago. Bad deal. Cost me everything, my savings. My shot. I saw a chance to get back at him. Then I saw you at the bar. And," he stopped, jaw tight, "it started as revenge, but it's not just that anymore. You're not just his wife to me." I stared at him, head buzzing like a busted radio. He'd used me, planned it, but the way he looked at me now, soft, almost sorry, didn't match the cold-blooded scheme he was laying out. "You're insane," I whispered, stepping back. "You don't even know me." He shook his head. "I know enough. You're incredible, Emily, and he doesn't deserve you." Before I could snap back, James walked in, phone in hand, oblivious. "Everything good?" he asked. Noah flashed that easy smile. "Just catching up," he said. I nodded, mute, my world splitting wide open. Noah's words were still ringing in my ears when James walked back into the living room that night. "I knew who you were, Emily. It started as revenge." My head was a mess, like someone had dumped a puzzle on the floor and kicked the pieces everywhere. I stood there, staring at Noah, this guy I'd thought was some random bar savior. now telling me he'd targeted me to get back at my husband. And yet, the way he looked at me, those damn blue eyes, soft and pleading, muddied it all up. I wanted to hate him, scream at him, shove him out the door. But before I could sort it out, James was back, clapping Noah on the shoulder like they were old frat buddies, totally blind to the bomb that had just gone off in front of me. I played it off, nodded, smiled, acted like nothing was wrong while we said goodnight and Noah left. But the second the door shut, I bolted upstairs, locked myself in the bathroom, and sat on the edge of the tub, trying to breathe. He'd used me, planned it. That night at the Rusty Anchor wasn't some fluke, it was a setup. And yet, he'd said I was incredible, that it wasn't just revenge anymore. Was that a line? A game? I didn't know what to believe. But one thing stuck. I couldn't shake how he made me feel. Alive, seen, even if it was built on a lie. It was more than I'd gotten from James in years. For days, I avoided Noah. He didn't call, not that he had my number, and I didn't see him around. James mentioned him here and there. No's killing it at the firm. No's got a sharp mind, and every time, my stomach twisted. I kept waiting for the guilt to crush me, for the reality of cheating to sink in. But it was drowned out by this restless itch. I'd catch myself staring out the kitchen window, wondering where Noah was, what he was thinking. It was stupid. I knew it, but that night at the motel had cracked something open in me, and I couldn't shove it back shut. Then, about a week later, it happened. I was grabbing coffee at this little spot in Wicker Park. A rare solo morning while James was at work and the kids were at school. I turned to leave, juggling my latte and keys. And there he was, leaning against the counter like he'd been waiting. "Hey," he said, voice low, that half-smile tugging at his lips. My heart slammed into my ribs. "What are you doing here?" I snapped, quieter than I meant to. He stepped closer, hands in his pockets. "Had to see you. Couldn't stop thinking about you." I should have walked away. Should have told him to screw off, but my feet wouldn't move. "You used me," I said, voice shaking. He nodded, slow. "At first, yeah, I won't lie, but it's more than that now. You know it is. And damn it, I did. That's how it started. We didn't plan it, just fell into it." A quick coffee turned into a walk by the river. Then a stolen hour at a diner on the edge of town. Before I knew it, we were meeting whenever we could. Lunch breaks in my SUV parked behind a strip mall. Late night drives to nowhere. A cheap motel once when James thought I was at a book club. It was reckless, sloppy, thrilling. Noah was everything James wasn't: attentive, intense, alive. He'd look at me like I was the only thing in the room. Ask about my day like he actually cared. Touch me like he couldn't get enough. It wasn't just the sex, though that was electric. It was the way he pulled me out of the fog I'd been stuck in. With him, I wasn't the invisible wife. I was Emily again, messy and real, but it wasn't all fireworks. The guilt crept in, sharper now, gnawing at me when I'd kiss Sophie goodnight or watch Liam play Xbox. I'd lie next to James in bed, his snores filling the dark, and wonder how long I could keep this up. Noah wasn't clean either. Every time we met, I'd see that shadow in his eyes. The revenge that started it all. I'd ask him about it sometimes. Late at night in his truck, parked under some flickering streetlight. "Do you still want to hurt him?" I'd say. He'd stare out the windshield, jaw tight. I did. Now? I don't know. It's complicated. I hated that answer. But I didn't push. Maybe I didn't want to know. We got good at hiding it, texting from burner apps, meeting in out-of-the-way spots. Once, we almost got caught. James came home early while I was on the phone with Noah in the garage, pretending to organize the recycling. I hung up fast, heart pounding, and played it off when James poked his head in. "Who you talking to?" he asked. "Casual, just my sister." I lied, forcing a smile. He bought it. Didn't even blink. That's how far gone he was. How little he noticed. It made me mad, but it also made me bold. The affair stretched on, weeks. Then a month, messy and dangerous. But I couldn't stop. Noah was a drug, and I was hooked. Then one night, it got real heavy. We were in his truck, parked near the lake, the city lights glinting off the water. He turned to me, serious, no smile. I can't keep doing this halfway. He said, I want more. Emily, you deserve more. My chest tightened. What are you saying? I asked, voice barely there. He took my hand, his grip firm. Leave him. Be with me, for real. I pulled back, stunned. Leave James? Blow up my life? The kids? The house? 15 years. It hit me like a brick. I wanted to say yes, God. Part of me did, but the weight of it choked me. I can't, I stammered. Not yet. His face hardened, but he nodded. Okay, but I'm not going anywhere. And that's when I knew, this wasn't just a fling anymore. It was a fuse, burning fast, and it was only a matter of time before it blew. Noah's words from that night in his truck, leave him, be with me, kept rattling around in my head like a loose screw. It had been over a month since this whole secret mess with him started. And I was stretched thin, juggling two lives. By day, I was still the suburban mom, packing lunches, driving Liam to practice, nodding through James's work stories. By night, I was sneaking off with Noah, stolen hours in parking lots, motels, his Chevy's front seat. I was addicted to the rush, the way he saw me. But his ultimatum had flipped a switch. Leave James? Uproot everything? I'd said, not yet. But it wasn't a no, and that scared me. I didn't know how much longer I could keep this tightrope act going. It was a rainy Tuesday in May when it all came crashing down. I'd been sloppy lately, too many late nights, too many excuses. James hadn't noticed much, or so I thought. He was still the same, buried in his laptop or zoning out to ESPN. But I'd underestimated how much he could ignore. That afternoon, I'd met Noah at a diner off I-90. A grimy little place with sticky booths and burnt coffee. We'd argued, he'd pushed again about leaving James, and I'd snapped. Told him I needed time. I got home late, around 9 o'clock, the rain pounding the roof of the Explorer as I pulled into the garage. The house was dark, quieter than usual. Sophie was at a friend's. Liam at a sleepover, perfect cover. I'd thought. I walked in, shaking off my umbrella, expecting James to be upstairs or passed out on the couch. But there he was, sitting at the kitchen table in the shadows. No lights on except the dim glow from the stove clock. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me. His face blank, hands resting on something in front of him. My stomach dropped. Hey, I said, trying to sound normal, hanging my coat on the rack. You're up late. He didn't move. Then he slid it across the table. A photo. Grainy but clear. Me and Noah, outside that diner. His hand on my arm. My face turned up to his. Someone had snapped it, God knows who, and sent it to him. How long? He asked. Voice flat, hollow, like he'd already checked out. I froze, the air sucking out of the room. My mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. James, he cut me off. Sharper now. How long? I swallowed hard, the lie I'd rehearsed 100 times dying in my throat. A few months, I said, barely above a whisper. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound that hit me harder than yelling would've. A few months, he repeated, nodding like it made sense. Guess I had it coming. Huh? Too busy, too checked out, should've seen it. I stood there, rain dripping from my hair onto the floor, waiting for the explosion, screaming, cursing, something, but it didn't come. He just leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face with both hands. Who is he? he asked. Quieter now. I didn't want to say it. But what was the point of hiding? Noah, I said. Noah Carter. His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. My Noah? The guy from work? I nodded. And for a second, I thought he'd lose it, throw the table, punch the wall. But he didn't. He just stared, piecing it together. Jesus Christ. Emily. Him? The silence after that was worse than anything. It stretched on, heavy and suffocating, rain hammering the windows like it wanted in. I wanted to explain, tell him about the anniversary, the years of feeling invisible, how Noah had woken me up, but it sounded pathetic even in my head. I'm sorry, I said finally, weak and useless. He shook his head. Slow. Don't. Just don't. He stood up, grabbed the photo, and crumpled it in his fist. I need to think, he said, brushing past me to the stairs. I didn't stop him. What could I say? The next few days were a blur. James didn't leave, didn't kick me out either, but he might as well have been a ghost. He slept in the guest room. Left for work before I woke up. Came home late. We didn't talk, didn't fight, just coexisted in this dead, quiet house. The kids noticed. Sophie asked why Dad was being weird. Liam just shrugged it off, but I dodged it. Said we were fine. I stopped seeing Noah, didn't text him, didn't answer when he called. I needed space, needed to figure out what the hell I'd done. But the truth was, it was over with James before he even found that photo. The marriage had been a shell for years. I'd just been the one to smash it. A week later, he sat me down. No yelling, no tears, just this tired, resigned look. I'm filing, he said, voice steady. Divorce. We're done. I nodded, didn't argue, didn't beg. Okay, I said, throat tight. The house? I asked. I'll keep it, he said, for the kids. You can figure out where you're going. It wasn't cruel, just practical, like he'd already moved on in his head. We split it clean, joint custody. No big lawyer circus. He didn't mention Noah again. Didn't ask. I think he didn't want to know. I moved out that weekend, packed a couple suitcases. Rented a one-bedroom near Logan Square. The kids stayed with James. Coming to me on weekends. Walking away from that house. The backyard where Liam learned to ride a bike. The kitchen where I'd burned 100 dinners. Felt like shedding skin. I didn't cry. Not then. I just drove off. Rain streaking the windshield. Wondering how I'd gotten here. Noah was still out there. Probably waiting. But I didn't call. Not yet. The affair had torched my life. And I wasn't sure I could trust the guy who'd lit the match. The rain didn't let up that weekend I moved out. Just kept pouring as I hauled my suitcases into that little one-bedroom in Logan Square. It was a shoebox of a place, peeling paint, a kitchenette that barely fit a microwave, and a view of a brick wall, but it was mine. James had the house, the kids most of the time. And I had this, a fresh start, or at least the wreckage of one. I'd left behind 15 years with him. Torched by a photo and a few months of reckless nights with Noah. Walking away didn't feel like freedom yet, it felt like falling. And I wasn't sure where I'd land. Noah called the day after I moved in. I'd been dodging him since James found out, letting his texts pile up unanswered. But when his name lit up my phone, I picked up. Emily, he said, voice rough. Where you at? I leaned against the counter, staring at the chipped linoleum. Moved out, I said. It's over with James. Silence for a beat. Then, can I see you? I should have said no. Should have cut it clean right there, but I didn't. Yeah, I said. Come over. He showed up an hour later. Leather jacket speckled with rain. Those blue eyes searching mine as I let him in. The place was still a mess, boxes everywhere. A folding chair as my only furniture. But he didn't care. He pulled me into a hug. Tight and warm. And for a second, I let myself sink into it. I'm sorry, he said into my hair, for how it started, but I'm not sorry for you. I pulled back, looking at him. You blew up my life. Noah, you know that, right? He nodded, jaw tight. I know, but I meant what I said. I want this. Us. For real. My chest ached. Part of me wanted it too. Bad, but the other part couldn't forget the lie it was built on. We tried, though, for a few weeks. We gave it a shot. He'd come over after work, bring takeout from some hole-in-the-wall taco joint, and we'd sit on the floor, laughing over stupid stuff, old movies, his bad driving stories. The sex was still electric. That hadn't changed, and he'd hold me after, whispering how he'd make it right. I met him at a bar once. Not the Rusty Anchor but close enough. And we danced to some shitty cover band. His hands on my hips like we were starting fresh. Sophie and Liam even met him one weekend. He played Xbox with Liam. Charmed Sophie with dumb dad jokes, and I let myself think maybe this could work. Maybe we could outrun how it began. But it didn't last. The cracks showed fast. I'd catch myself staring at him, wondering if he'd ever pull something like that revenge stunt again. Not on James, but on me. He'd talk about the future, moving in, maybe a place by the lake, and I'd freeze, picturing that photo James had held, the one that ended it all. Trust was a ghost between us, flickering but never solid. One night, we fought hard. I'd asked about his old deal with James, digging for details, and he shut down. Why's it matter now? He snapped. Because it's why we're here. I yelled back. You used me. Noah, how'd I know that's not still you? He stormed out, slamming the door, and I didn't call him back. We fizzled after that. A few more texts, a half-hearted coffee meetup. Then nothing. By mid-June, it was done. I saw him one last time at a gas station near my place, him filling up that Chevy, me grabbing a Coke inside. Our eyes met through the window, and he nodded, a quick, sad tilt of his head. I nodded back, then walked away. That was it. No big breakup scene, no tears, just two people who'd burned too hot and crashed too fast. Settling into my new life wasn't easy. The kids split time between me and James, and they adjusted, Sophie with her teenage eye rolls, Liam with his shrugs, but I could tell it stung them. James and I kept it civil, dropping off backpacks and signing school forms like strangers who'd once shared a bed. He never brought up Noah, and I didn't ask if he knew the whole story. The house was his now, full of memories I didn't fit into anymore. My apartment got less bare, some thrift store furniture, a rug, a coffee pot, but it took months to feel like home. Looking back, I don't regret it, not the way you'd think. That affair with Noah, the divorce, the mess, it gutted me. Sure, but it also woke me up. I'd been invisible for years, fading into James's shadow, and I didn't even know it till Noah lit that match. Yeah, he played me at first. And yeah, it hurt like hell when it unraveled. But it taught me something I'd forgotten. I'm worth more than being a ghost in my own life. I lost a marriage, a house, a chunk of my kids' trust, but I found me again. Buried under all that suburban autopilot. Now, I'm figuring it out, alone. Mostly, I started running again, jogging along the lakefront, feeling the wind off the water. I joined a book club for real this time, not as a cover, and made a couple friends who don't know the old me. Liam says I'm less boring now, which I'll take as a win. Sophie's still mad sometimes, but she'll come around. As for love, I'm not chasing it, not yet. Noah was a wildfire, and I'm still sifting through the ashes. But I'm here, breathing, living, and that's enough. If there's a lesson in this mess, it's this: sometimes you've got to lose everything to see what you're made of. I was invisible once, but not anymore, and whatever comes next, twists, falls, or just quiet days, I'm ready for it. Life's too short to fade away.